Word up, everybody. Welcome to Word of the Day with Comedians. I'm your host, Deader Dennis Maller, and joining me on the program today is comedian and podcaster Michael Palladino. What's going on, Mike?
Not much, man. How are you?
Just starting to sweat for the first time of the year here in New England, which is an all year round thing for you in Arizona.
Yeah, I could tell. You got a healthy glow going on right now, so yeah.
That brings us to our word of the day today, which is Vanguard. And Vanguard refers to the forefront of an action or movement. The meaning comes from the word's original sense, referring to troops moving at the head of an army. Vanguard.
For me, my association with the word Vanguard comes from, God, it had to have been 2 years ago, that documentary on HBO about NXIVM. Did you watch that? The NXIVM cult?
Oh, no, I heard a lot about it, but no, I never watched it.
Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
No, is that Vanguard? Is there a religion called Vanguard?
No, the head of the whole thing, a sad little boy named Keith Raniere, he insisted that his followers call him Vanguard. So when a short little sad boy tells a bunch of women, by the way, I am Vanguard now, like, that's a sign. Get the out of that cult. Like,
all you're vanguarding is your virginity from other people. That's what you're guarding yourself from when you're that short.
There's a joke in there somewhere about creepy guys in vans and guarding, but I like, it's too early. I can't get it. I need a couple more cold brews.
Like Vanguard, you mentioned that there's that guy in charge of that cult that insists on people calling him Vanguard. And I feel like Vanguard the person who would insist on calling themselves Vanguard is somebody who would not be a short, charming cult leader, but somebody who'd be dopey and overweight and sits out in front of your vehicles and protects them from getting spray painted by kids in the neighborhood.
A vanguard. Yeah, a literal vanguard. Yeah.
It was a very long walk for a very literal definition.
Yes. And I would ask you, when you're done with this podcast, you look up Keith Raniere, the leader of NXIVM, NXIVM. Not a charming man at all. How he got away with all that is beyond me.
See, I assume all cult leaders have some kind of charm to them.
They do in a way, but this is I love learning about cult leaders. I love it. You could tell by how long my hair is and everything. But there's something, like, you could look at a lot of cult leaders and say, on some level I get it, but I just never got it with Keith Raniere, aka Vanguard. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners will agree with me on that one. I just never understood why he got to be as popular as he was.
And that now brings us to the fun fact did you know-ism of the word of the day, which is Vanguard. And our fun fact did you know-ism brought to us by Merriam-Webster, who refuses to be a sponsor, but never actually said they won't be. They just won't return my calls. Vanguard comes from Anglo-French avant-garde, from avant, meaning before, and garde, G-A-R-D-E, garde. In medieval times, avant-garde referred to troops that marched at the end of the army.
Really?
In time, Vanguard marched its way as a word for the group of people who are the leaders of an action or movement in society, politics, art, or etc.
Wow. Okay, so there is some crossover between Vanguard and what we know as avant-garde today. Okay. Huh. I had no idea. I came on here and I learned some.
I'm kind of foggy on what avant-garde means now. I've heard it before. I've definitely used it. Avant-garde means it's almost like wouldn't it almost be a synonym to je ne sais quoi?
Avant-garde is a type of cinnamon. Yes. It's a brand of cinnamon. Yeah. No. Like, when I think of the term avant-garde as we know it today, it would be more like like alternative, maybe, in a way, just like, or a little more like you could say, I don't know, like the Beatles started out kind of, one way, but then they turned to avant-garde toward the end. Like, they got a little more, just, I don't want to say artsy, because that's literally the dumbest word I could pick, but you know what I mean. So,
according to Merriam-Webster, is an intelligentsia that develop new or experimental concepts, or especially in arts, the avant-garde in the film industry.
Okay, so then the avant-garde would be technically the term used to describe the people at the forefront that are...
Means ahead of its time. Yeah, I mean, looking at it, synonyms for it would basically be like things that are ahead of its time. And of course, in the etymology of the word vanguard, coming from the roots, same roots as avant-garde.
What's the etymology of that word?
Of avant-garde?
No, of
I can't say
Yeah, no, me neither.
Yeah,
and
I can't say that word.
I think if we both said the word right, it said the epidemiology of epidemiology, there would be a grammatical hole in the space-time continuum. Someone tried to find the epidemiology of epidemiology.
And that now brings us to the time where we will start constructing our sentence using the word of the day in context. And of course, every good sentence needs to have a subject, needs to be about somebody. So, Michael, who can we think of that could be the subject of our sentence? Somebody, let's go with a generic name of a person that would represent a personality type. And for our sentence for the word Vanguard. For Vanguard, now I'm getting avant-garde. Vanguard. Who is somebody who would use the word vanguard, which refers to a forefront or an action of movement? So, who is somebody? Let's skip the subject, because I think we have to figure out what the action that this person would be doing that we would use the word vanguard. So, what is a thing that somebody could be doing where we would use vanguard? Obviously, I think right off the top of the bat, using the military definition of it, I would be thinking of somebody who plays Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's the first place my mind goes, is somebody who's playing D&D and he's got a legion of orcs who is his vanguard going to attack some demogorgagu. But let's see if we can get and use an ironic sense.
I would say this, though. You said either somebody in like the military or somebody who's into Dungeons and Dragons. Like those would be the two like types of people that we use vanguard. I say combine those two. I work with a guy who's ex-military at my job, and we actually talked about this recently. But the guys who who talk about being special forces are never the guys who actually were special forces, because real guys don't talk about that. So I totally feel like anybody in the military that was like, I was the vanguard, or we were the vanguard of the Middle East area, and like in that theater, that would be totally a guy who didn't do much. It just sounds like a word that soldiers who don't do much use, and that soldiers who do a lot think but never say. You know what I mean?
Yes, I like this. I love this. I love that a lot of the sentences that I love the most come from like ironic definitions or talking about people who think they're using the word properly, but they're not. So I love this. Okay. So what is the name of a person? Again, let's not use your actual friend person that you know, but what is the name of somebody who would present themselves as someone who was in special forces, but wasn't actually in special forces? Is that like a Ben? Is it?
For me, that would be like a Trevor or a Scott.
Trevor, yes.
Or Chad.
Or Trevor Scott. Let's do it. Let's do a first and last name.
Trevor
we don't
Scott.
do a lot of first and last names here.
Yeah, Trevor Scott. Somebody out there listening went to a high school with Trevor Scott. So yeah, they're going nuts right now.
All right, so Trevor Scott will be the person of our sentence who is a who claims to be falsely claims that he was part of a vanguard. Oh, what could he be the vanguard of? First, what's the who are the ones that did Bin Laden? Is that SEAL Team 6?
SEAL Team 6. Yep.
All right, everybody, we have officially picked our word of the day. We have defined it, and we have created a sentence using it in context. And to present all of that for you is my guest, Michael Palladino.
Thanks, Dennis. All right, let's take a look here at our word. The word is vanguard. And we'll go over the definition one more time. That meaning comes from the word's original sense, referring to troops moving at the head of an army. Let's see here. Wasn't there another? Here, yeah. The forefront of an action or movement, right? Yeah. Okay, so the sentence that we came up with was Claire lamented to her friend Sarah about the drunk guy talking in the third person, Trevor Scott, who tried to convince her he was the Vanguard of SEAL Team 6, but kept saying Rainbow Six from the Tom Clancy video game.
All right, everybody, we have officially expanded our vocabulary by one more word today. I want to thank everyone for watching and listening to the program. And of course, I want to thank my guest, Michael, for joining us today and helping us construct this sentence, warning about people who may say they are in a vanguard and also probably speak in the third person. And Michael, please tell everyone where they can find you.
Well, first, I want to thank you for being the vanguard of comedy podcasts, Dennis. And people can find me. The best place to find me would be on Instagram. You can go to at Cycle Tarantino, Cycle_Tarantino. It rhymes with my name, Michael Palladino. And I have a podcast you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and whatever other platforms you might use. It's called Adult Humor. Dennis, you were a guest on there. Basically, we take the party jokes from old Playboy magazines and talk about just how unfunny they really are. So, yeah, that's where people can find me.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening, and don't forget to word up. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Word of the Day with Comedians all the way to the end. I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to continue to keep expanding your vocabulary the funniest way possible, I recommend clicking this box right here to watch our latest episode. Of course, stay up to date with everything by subscribing or listening to Word of the Day with Comedians on the go by downloading it on iTunes or Spotify.